All right. I've been looking forward to this episode for quite a while, George. Okay. We're talking one of your favorite topics.
Yeah.
Mine as well, Area 51, and perhaps some of the quirky things around it and how it ties in. So welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here with us. We got Carlos Sampson, who is directing the show, producer of the show, John Forrest with us here. And Area 51, I got this story, okay, and this is what sort of brought it up. A Polish national went out, photographed, Michael Ricotta, went out, got busted for taking pictures of Area 51. This is just recently as we're doing the show here. He was let out on time served, so he's not going to, had to turn everything in, of course. Look what you started, George.
Not my fault.
Think about this. Are you going to you're putting it on Bob Lazar? I guess he sort of started it, didn't he?
No, according to the Pentagon, they're the ones who made all this stuff
up. Good point. Wall Street Journal story.
We're going to get into that.
Where they're trying to distract a little bit from this. Tell us about that.
Well, Wall Street Journal is a great newspaper. I've been a long-time subscriber. I don't think I am anymore. It went out, but they printed 2 stories. And the source of these stories is very clear. It's Sean Kirkpatrick, a guy who for 17 months was the head of AARO, the new organization created to supposedly investigate UFOs. A lot of people, most people in the UFO field feel that AARO really is a counterintelligence operation along the lines of Project Blue Book, designed not to investigate, but to explain it away and debunk it. He's the primary source for the information that was used by the Wall Street Journal. But the allegation is the whole story about alien technology out of Area 51 was made up by the Air Force. That according to this story, an unnamed Air Force officer went out to Area 51 and the environment around there on an unnamed date, handed over some faked UFO photos, and planted the story in an unnamed location about alien technology being tested out there in the Nevada desert. Supposedly, they wanted to distract attention from what was really flying around out there, which was the F-117 stealth fighter. What a ridiculous plot that is. I mean, for anybody to take credit for doing something like that, I would imagine that unnamed colonel spent the rest of his career somewhere up in Nome, Alaska or something, because it was a miserable plan that completely backfired. If you want to distract attention from Area 51, is it a good idea to tell them that there's alien technology out there? How do you think the public is going to react? How did the public react? But that's number one. Number two is that's not what happened. We were there when that happened. We were there when the whole story about Area 51 and aliens exploded. And it had nothing to do with any fake photos, which, by the way, have never surfaced anywhere. No one has shown them. That is not what started this ball rolling. It was our stories with Bob Lazar. First interview in May of 1989 when he was in silhouette and used a surname, a fake name, Dennis. And then in November of 1989, it really kicked into high gear. One of the things that happened was that the Rachel Bar and Grill, we're going to hear from some of those folks, changed its name to the Little Alien. Then we had the state of Nevada declare and dedicate the ET Highway. We had the Las Vegas Stars change their name to the Las Vegas 51s. That's video of the Rachel Bar and Grill before it changed its name to Little Alien. And they did not change it because the Air Force planted some fake photos. They changed it because of the stampede that was created in 1989 by our stories with Bob Lazar about alien tech out there.
Okay, and we've got, in fact, the people, the wife, Joe is no longer with us here, right, but his wife, Pat, and daughter, Connie, talks about how they came up with that name, Little Alien, for the Rachel Bar and Grill.
But it was the Rachel Bar and Grill before we came here.
Yeah.
We assumed their name.
I just know that in talking to you and Joe in '89, when he talked about the idea of changing the name, and he was joking, Little Alien, he thought it was funny as hell.
Yeah.
And then you did. But that was after the Lazar stuff came out.
And the whole thing,
That's what started. That's what kicked it off.
That was the heavy thing when we changed the name. And we had kicked the name around for a while.
Did a contest.
We were, actually, we were driving up Hancock Summit when we chose the way that it would be. And we got someone to do the initial logo on paper.
Yeah, that was Bob Kolar.
Yes,
Yeah.
out in Boulder
He's,
City.
Boulder City. But
So-
I honestly think if something like that would have happened, my dad would have been the first one to reach out to you, the media, and that would be something that you would have heard for the next 20 years come out of his mouth.
Yeah, this is an interview you did recently with them now that's going to be on our website that you can check it out, 8 News Now, the Mystery Wire section. But this was an interesting a lot of things were transitioning at that time here in the valley here in southern Nevada, including that little bar and grill in Rachel.
And it's a cool place. I don't know if you've been there or not.
I've not.
Oh,
I need to go. Okay, we're going.
Up there. It's a great place. But I mean, they make it very clear. The people who are actually there and were not part of Air Force propaganda, the people who are there know why they changed the name. They changed the name because suddenly the town was flooded with people who wanted to see UFOs. And that came as a result of the stories we did here, not fake photos that supposedly were distributed and created the whole mythology. It's a preposterous story, and it had exactly the opposite effect of what they said they wanted to do.
And they also talked about some of their encounters, certainly up there during your interview with them, and have some interesting comments. Here we go, more with Connie and Pat.
Yeah, when I was in high school.
They're all Air Force kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we were up along the sheep range, and we saw what we described as a shadow in the sky. It was a black airplane. What we now know is the stealth. Back then we didn't know, but once my girlfriends and I, we back at school a couple days after all of that, my household was visited and told that I needed to not be speaking about this. My temperament at the time would be like, I'm not Air Force, you don't command me. And I went about my life, but 3 of my girlfriends that's parents were in the Air Force left school and moved. And I never spoke to them again.
Okay.
The point being,
Fun.
the people who live out there see UFOs. They've seen them for a long time. We have records about UFOs, real UFOs over Nevada that date back to the 1940s. So they'd all seen the stealth. At that point, anybody that lives out there was seeing it. It was flying out of Groom all the time and being tested, and later at Tonopah, they'd all seen the stealth. They know the difference between the stealth and something truly anomalous out there. So the idea that they would be fooled by some fake photos is preposterous.
Also, they wanted to give tribute to Joe Travis here. Pat and Connie did that in your interview.
I wonder if Spirit of Joe is still around here.
Oh, there's no doubt.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. When people aren't doing things right in my mom's kitchen, things fly off of the shelf. It's kind of crazy when the water's not tidy. Something will fly off the bar into the sink. Everybody around here knows Joe's still here.
Oh, yeah. They all feel it, too.
Okay. Joe's still got to be there. He was an interesting character. I've seen your interviews with Joe.
Man, he was hilarious. I think he was his own best customer at the Little Aliens, but a lot of time at the bar. A very funny guy. And we did an interview. You saw a little clip there with me sitting at the bar. We'd done an interview up there while it was still the Rachel Bar and Grill, and that's when Joe shared with us his idea to call it the Little Alien. And it was funny. It was not in reaction to some fake photos somebody handed out. It was because suddenly they get all this influx of customers who are up there looking for UFOs. And a lot of the customers there every single day work what they say over the hill, meaning at the base. That's a core clientele for the Little Alien is people who actually work out there.
How far north of, say, downtown Las Vegas? Rachel. To get to Rachel is an hour?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half to drive?
It's maybe closer to 2 hours. It depends on whether you stop and look at, say, the Pahranagat Wildlife Refuge or stop at any of those little places in Alamo and look around. But it's probably closer to 2 hours.
Okay, when we come back, you also talked to another guy very interested in that area around Area 51, George Harris, a local politician, businessman, restaurant owner, about his experiences. We'll have that when we return to Mystery Wire. Okay, at the top of the show, we talked about Michael Rakita, a Polish national. I think I'm saying his last name correctly. Hope I am. But who was taking some photographs of Area 51, got busted for that, and then released It seems like foreigners like coming here too and taking pictures as well.
Well,
Am I
Area
right?
51, we use it in quotation marks, sort of air quotes, the most famous secret base in the world. And of course, the stories about alien technology that we first shared with the world is what put it on the map. And every major news organization in the world has beaten a path to its door, whether they believe the story or not. So people all over the world have seen movies and TV shows and read books about it, and they're drawn by the mystery. A lot of the folks like this guy, Michael, are interested in aviation, cutting-edge planes, secret stuff. So they use public land as a vantage point with these great big lenses to take photos. Same thing that Jorg Arnu, who has dreamlandresort.com, this really great website, not a UFO guy at all, but interested in secret planes. And they have cameras and lenses and eyes on the base all the time, no matter what is flying around out there. Jorg Arnu, as we know, a couple of years ago, had the FBI raid his operation, take all of his computers. I think he's not a foreigner. He was born a German, but he's a naturalized American. He's an American citizen, but they raided him, took all this stuff, and here we are 3 years later, they've never filed any charges. With this guy, he's a Polish national, and I think that probably gets the FBI's attention. A foreign national has taken pictures of our most secret base out here, and they tried to make an example of him. Said, hey, look, you can't do this stuff. Now, the law about whether you're allowed to take pictures or not of a classified installation is a little bit gray. They have those great big warning signs. It used to say use of deadly force authorized. You can't take photos here, not even of the gate, which is a little bit over the top. But I think they wanted people to get a point that we don't appreciate you taking photos or video of these classified sites. And most people get away with it. A foreign national who did the same thing did not. And I think they just wanted to make an example of him.
Okay, another guy who's done business up there, a good friend of both of ours, George Harris.
Right.
You talked to him about some of the disinformation that we mentioned earlier in this broadcast, some of the disinformation that is being put out there by the government that he has seen firsthand out there.
When you mix secrecy with imagination, you don't just get mystery, you get mythology. That's a fact. And did they have a disinformation campaign? Absolutely, they most certainly did. But the disinformation campaign was actually, George, it was 4 different levels. I mean, they didn't want anybody to know that, in 1948, when the crash took place in Roswell, that all that stuff was moved
To Nevada.
it wasn't moved to Nevada first. It was moved to Wright-Patterson Air Base, and then they put money together quietly, and they built this little thing, just north of the test site, and and it was called, back then they called it Groom Lake, but this was Area 51, and it just kept going.
Okay. George Harris, interesting guy. And if you go online to see this full interview with him, he talks about his dad, Mal Harris, and connection with Howard Hughes. Which,
Did you work for Mal Harris at Channel 13 or work with him?
I knew of him well, yes. And certainly what he had done here in this valley and at this station, at this TV station as well, certainly, when Howard Hughes owned it. So there's a lot of connections there that's sort of interesting. Disinformation has been one of the topics with Area 51 here today. And George, who has business interests out there, is also saw that firsthand.
He had told me that he had some time in the Army. He was involved in psychological warfare programs and efforts, so he has an understanding about disinformation. We know him here because he's a political operative, very connected to a lot of candidates over the years. He's running for office himself this time around, but he loves the UFO stuff. That's how I got to know him a long time ago, is that he had an interest in it, and he put his money where his mouth is. He created a business called the Alien Research Center, which is right at Hyco and almost non-existent. There's very little to the town there, but it's right at the start of the ET Highway. Great location, sells all kinds of stuff. He also created something called the Alien Tequila, considered one of the best tequilas in the world. He has alien coffee. He has all kinds of stuff like that. And right at the start of this shot is from the from the dedication of the ET Highway back in 1996. this month, back in 1996. So George is familiar with the topic. He's putting his money where his mouth is. He recognizes that disinformation can be real, but he does not think that that particular story, the myth about Area 51 created by the Air Force, is true. Not even a chance. Strangely enough, he is one of the few civilians who ever had permission to go into Area 51. And he tried to get me, it was a cattle drive to the rancher who was out there right next to the base. His cattle would cross over into restricted zone, and he had permission to go and round them up once in a while. And George was invited to go along. He tried to get me in there twice. Can I let this lonely old cowpoke come along and round up some dogies? And then when the Sheehan family, which had a mine out there, also wanted him to come in, he went in and asked for permission for me to go along on that trip. And they just kind of, are you serious?
They said, who? You mean George Knapp? You mean that guy? No, and double no. You're not coming out there. Even as a cowpoke with a whip and and a rope and stuff. So, no, but it's okay. But the Sheehan, I've seen your stories certainly on. They had land issues certainly with Area 51 because their land bordered, or might have, some of it was actually in Area 51.
Yeah, the government sort of took it over. They'd been there for generations, much longer than Area 51 existed. And when that facility was created, they were allowed to coexist for a while. But then when things got more classified and more secretive, the government wanted them out. And there was a major court battle over the years about what they should be compensated for that mine. And George was allowed to go in at one point and tried to get me in as well, and that wasn't happening.
The ET Highway out there certainly is something of interest. You saw that. The Governor Bob Miller was out there, former governor at the time, but he was there for the dedication along with Lonnie Hammergren, the lieutenant governor, who's no longer with us, but quite a character during his days. It was fascinating to see that event take place out there. You were out there for that dedication of the ET Highway.
It was on my birthday, by the way.
Oh, was it?
Okay. I thought of it as a birthday present to me for dedicating the highway on that date.
And I have driven Heiko to Lund. Okay, I've done that. All this is close by. And that's the 100 miles of no side
Not
streets
much.
where they used to have a competition.
Right.
Not anymore, because cars would go too fast and there'd be people dying once or twice a year. It seemed
that guy
like.
in that shot right there, the Area 51 bowling team or aliens, that's Bob Price, who was a longtime assemblyman from North Las Vegas.
Makes sense. Okay, when we come back, we're going to hear from George Harris a little bit more about him and what he's done with his alien tequila vodka.
Tequila.
It's tequila. Okay.
He's got alien coffee as well. A couple other products.
Yeah. When we return to Mystery Wire. Area 51 has spawned a few business interests. That's the topic of today, sort of, not the nuts and bolts of what's out there. And, that we've covered on previous episodes and we'll do on future episodes, certainly. But I find it fascinating how it's taken over the culture in so many ways of Southern Nevada, this area, Area 51, and all goes back to May 1989, your interview with Bob Lazar, doesn't it?
It does go back to that, not to some fake story planted and given to the Wall Street Journal, which is just, we're going to be reporting on that in greater detail. But yeah, it does stem from that. And it's amazing how it took off and made this previously secret base known everywhere all over the world. I mean, I'll bet it's launched 1,000 different products. I mean, rock bands and songs, poems, T-shirts, posters, ashtrays, all kinds of knickknacks. The Las Vegas 51's baseball team that's now the Aviators, and all kinds of other stuff. There was Bob Lazar Christmas ornaments that were selling for a while, and documentaries. Area 51 had become almost a punchline, or at least a reference in all kinds of movies. The Da Vinci Code. It was in one of the Indiana Jones movies, and it's known everywhere. And it's amazing how it all started and how it all built. But a lot of people have made some money on it out there, and George Harris is one of them.
He is one of them, and he says, yes, indeed, as business interests go, he has no apologies for having the alien tequila. Here we go. More with George Harris.
85% of the public in the world believes in extraterrestrial life. So it was a marketing tool that I had a built-in audience. I don't have to compete with big guys.
And his tequila, his alien tequila, he's got an agave ranch in Mexico.
Right.
I understand he owns land down there, and because to be tequila, you have to have real agave from Mexico, correct? Am I right about all this?
Yeah, and it's pretty good. I mean, the bottle looks like an alien, so it has a built-in attraction. It'll grab your eye if you're in a store. I have tasted that tequila. I'm not a big tequila drinker anymore, and it's pretty good. And I think it's won some prizes or something. So it was a good marketing move on his part, and the store is still interesting. It's got a giant robot standing in front of it. Kind of reminds you of Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yes.
Giant, very very promotable, and great to take selfies in there. And his little business there was one of the epicenters, one of the two epicenters of the Storm Area 51 debacle. Brought a lot of people out into the desert, which I would recommend. You haven't been out there.
I'm going to go out there and check it out.
You need to go out there, and people all over the world who are seeing this, it's a great trip. You shouldn't expect to see any UFOs, although some people see them, things like that out there now. Sometimes secret planes, helicopters have buzzed me a few times when I've been out there getting too close to the edge, and it's a fun trip. Pahranagat is a beautiful wildlife refuge. The little towns in Lincoln County are fascinating. Yeah. And then you drive on the ET highway. You got to stop and take some selfies and photos and things like that. And then the little alien, all kinds of knickknacks, pretty good food, a lot of camaraderie there. So whether you believe in UFOs or not, it's a great trip to take, and I encourage people to do it.
I've been all around it. I've been all the places around it, but haven't gone exactly there. That's next on my list here through that part of Nevada. Oh, I'm going to mention here real quick. This just came to mind because I've seen a lot of your stories on it. There's also an Area 52 that we have not north of that, Tonopah area, where they did more test range with flights of different aircraft here. And they have fascinating stories to tell up there. And we don't have time to go all the way into it, but we're going to on a future episode.
It's like a sister station to Area 51. It's when they test and develop the secret cutting-edge planes at 51. When they become operational, they at first go to Area 52. It's where they mothballed all the F-117s, supposedly, although there's still a lot of them flying around out there.
So no, it is fascinating to live in here in Southern Nevada because you will see some of the aircraft flying over the valley at times after they've been known,
open,
and released and open. But you still get that air show occasionally that puts a smile on your face.
And of course, if people want to know more about the myth, the lore, the actual facts out there, I mean, Mystery Wire, we've been covering it for 37, 38 years now, and we've got most of those stories and interviews posted on our website. There's a dreamlandresort.com. Terrific website, not a UFO website. They're interested in secret planes, and they share information, photos, videos of that sort. Our friend Jorg Arnu runs that, and they have very spirited discussions. This guy, Michael, who was arrested, was a contributor to that website. And then there's a great book by T.D. Barnes, who was head of the Roadrunners organization, made up of former Area 51 employees. He had a book called Station D, which is like this thick, has all these, he was like the premier person in forcing the release of a lot of UFO-related documents and Area 51-related documents regarded to the base out there at Groom Lake, where he worked for a long time.
No, and thank you for clearing up in this episode the Wall Street Journal story and some of the issues, certainly with that and what we have here on Mystery Wire. So go to our website, 8newsnow.com, and you can get more of these. You'll have the interviews, full interviews with Pat and Connie and with George Harris. Interesting Howard Hughes stuff that he talks about there in that interview. So, George, thank you very much.
It's fun.
For joining us here today. And thanks for watching Mystery Wire. Bye for now, everybody.